People who excessively ponder upon the inequality principle often found citing several reasons for their claims. First such reason being that the growing inequality is the flip side of shrinking opportunity. Second being that many of the distortions that led to the inequality, such as those associated with monopolistic power and preferential tax treatment that the top 1% receive, undermine the efficiency of the economy. Third reason that the critics come up with is the inequality blocks the collective actions that are needed in the modern economy, meaning investment in infrastructure, education and technology. Last but not the least is the increased concentration of income in the hands of the few. Because of this increased concentration of the income, the majority of the population will not be able to afford an education, and this will lead to their further impoverishment, which in turn will make it harder to get educated. And this way, the father of the inequality in the world, the USA, would fall into general misery. But these are the arguments that the critics of inequality make, and over the course of economic discourse, this discussion of the growing inequality has become a moralistic one, in which those who are saying that it is bad have taken the moral high ground. They portray any doubt about the inequality argument as a defense of the people who are now in the famous richest 1%. Many of which, like the members of other social strata, are not beyond criticism regarding the way they acquired their wealth. But as I would argue later in this video, that is not the issue here. The point are whether inequality is bad in itself, and whether Nobel laureate Joseph Stiglitz, who propounded the idea of inequality being bad, has proven that it is. Well, he hasn't proved it. As is the first place, growing inequality is the most frequently the flip side of growing economy, not shrinking opportunity. In fact, inequality is the mechanism through which the market generates and spread innovation, which in turn generates opportunity for millions of individuals. Every innovation has generated inequality in incomes, as the inventors exploit it commercially. The inequality in turn attracts new innovators as well as imitators, rapidly spreading the initial innovation and improvement on it. In the process, they generate many new opportunities and employments. For example, Steve Jobs, Thomas Edison. These people created new inventions and enterprises for the sake of putting themselves on the best side of inequality, to make large amount of money that would increase their income over that of the rest of the population. By being successful, they created inequality, not just in their immediate neighborhood, but also in the whole country. They became billionaires. Many of their colleagues in Apple and all the Edison companies, General Electric, Consolidated Edison and Commonwealth Edison, also became billionaires in the midst of the society in which just a few people are billionaires, by improving their productivity of others and themselves. However, their innovations created millions of new opportunities and jobs and employments across nations and continents. Even people who suffer when seeing the others getting rich have to recognize that seeing Jobs and Edison becoming billionaires was a small price to pay for the enormous opportunity they created in the whole world. Second argument, that many of the distortion that leads to inequality, such as monopolistic power and tax privileges, undermines the efficiency of the economy. Well, this argument is absolutely irrelevant for this discussion of inequality. It refers to the bad practices that are bad independently from their impact on inequality. Certainly, some people may have arrived into the 1% group by objectionable means, like many financiers that became billionaires while bankrupting their firms and other customers, or by obtaining rents from the government illicitly. This, however, cannot be constructed into a condemnation of inequality. In fact, fiscal measures that Stiglitz himself would seem to support, like taking away income from the productive to transfer it to the non-productive, as negative in terms of their efficiency of the economy, as the abuse of monopoly power. Some of these transfers are justifiable only in humanitarian, not economic grounds. For instance, Modi government named Anil Ambani a partner to Rafale Group in Rafale deal to provide support to the already ailing and nearly bankrupt Anil Ambani. Some other transfers like subsidies to the rich funded with general taxes are not justifiable, period. They are not justifiable in any sense. Could we say that equality is bad because some of the means to attain it undermines the efficiency of the economy? No, right? Third argument is not only twisted but also as irrelevant as the second one. The effort to connect the lack of investment in infrastructure and education and technology with income inequality are far-fetched, to say the least. There are no reliable data on the distribution of income during the crucial 1870 to 1914 period that witnessed huge industrialization of the United States. However, it is undeniable that the economic and political influence of the great barons of the epoch, J.P. Morgan, Andrew Carnegie, John D. Rockefeller, Cornelius Vanderbilt, Andrew Mellon, Leland Stanford, to mention a few, was unparalleled in the history of economy and the country. And they not only spearheaded the construction of the infrastructure of the United States, they also presided over the improvement of education and health that propelled the United States to become the leading power in the world. Similarly, in India, Tatas and Birlas opened plethora of social and educational institutions, much before the need of doing so finally dawned upon the government. They did so not because of the government pressure, but because of their goodwill and philanthropy that historically India always witnessed from our rich merchants. In fact, these people in the USA funded the great expansion of the modern private universities and hospitals in the country. They were the 1% of those years. They were the top 1% of those years. And the current 1% keeps on funding these institutions. Right? Why would you want to go to United States? Ivy League universities, they are all funded by the private organizations. Rather than being a result of the concentration of wealth and income, the decline of investment in education and physical infrastructure seems to be attributable to the growing entitlements that plague the federal budget, which are in turn results of a misguided search for equality. The socialism comes here to play its part. Regarding the fourth argument, the sinking hole of inequality leading to less education and more inequality, it's important to note that the United States, India, Europe, China has never produced as many graduates as it does today after the economic reforms. The annual production of PhDs in India has doubled, and now we rank 4th in the world. As most of other things, the Americans doubled their PhDs to 64,000 from 1970s to today. They have doubled. Moreover, the United States continue to be one of the major sources of knowledge and learning in the entire world. And philanthropy aimed at helping students is booming in the United States. 22 of the 30 best universities in the world are Americans. Many people from China and India and other developed countries, visibly poorer than the average American student, come to the United States to study. Should you believe that American families who have access to universities of all prices and generous student loans cannot afford what a poor Chinese and Indian can, only because the distribution of income of the two of the poorest countries in the world is less unequal by a fraction than that of the United States. Believing that the world will enter a vicious circle of lack of education and lower opportunity, leading to less education and more poverty, is, to say the least, melodramatic. Thus, the argument, do not resist the slightest confrontation with reality. Unforgivingly, the supporters of the idea of inequality seems to be ignoring the role that inequality plays in generating innovation and growth, and through these in eliminating poverty. Actually, these critics of inequality do not seem to realize three important points. First, that the real problem is not the inequality but poverty. Nobody would say that there is a serious social problem in a city block where Mota Bhai lives side by side with a person who earns 1 crore rupees per year. Just because Mota Bhai makes 10,000 times more money than that of the neighbor. However, a serious social problem would exist in another block where one neighbor earning 25 lakh rupees per year than his other neighbor who would be earning couple of lakhs per year. He would be called destituted. Here the problem is not the inequality, which is the same in both the cases, but the poverty of the other neighborhood. Secondly, what the critics of the inequality do not seem to realize that in many cases inequality could be the price of the reduction of poverty through the mechanism we already discussed above. The creation of opportunity, right? In 1981, China was equalitarian in income, but also very poor. There were no incentives to improve because everybody earned the same. As the Chinese economy was liberalized, opportunities arose for many potential entrepreneurs to generate new economic activities, hire people and become rich. As they succeeded in their undertakings, inequality rose, but poverty declined. Because as they became millionaires, they created new and better employment and new and better opportunities for other entrepreneurs. In fact, one could ask the critics of inequality that if there is no potential for inequality, what would be the incentive for innovation and growth? आप क्यों काम करेंगे जब आपको किसी नाकारा के साथ कंपेयर करने पे कुछ खास बेनिफिट नहीं मिलेगा? A third point that Stiglitz seems to ignore is that if he were right regarding the sinking hole of education and inequality, development would be impossible, because people in the poor countries like say Sweden and Japan were in the 19th century, or China and Korea and Singapore in the early 20th century would asphyxiate in their own poverty without affording an education. According to the critics of inequality, countries with larger inequality should not be growing, right? According to the critics, these countries, Japan, Sweden, should not be growing, especially because many of them are poor and would be trapped even more into the sinking hole. But this is not true. Some unequal countries grew faster than some less unequal, and vice versa. Those who are taking an advantage of this transformation are earning enormous benefits. To gain from it, you don't have to be a knowledge entrepreneur, but only to live in the neighborhood of one of them. California and the entire United States have benefited from Silicon Valley. Mumbai is sustaining whole of the Maharashtra, and Bangalore is feeding whole of Karnataka, perhaps India. With time, this trend of concentration of income will reverse itself as more people learn to take advantage of the economic revolution, like Ritesh Agarwal of Oyo did, like Bansal brothers of Flipkart did, like Ananya Bose of Zilongo did, and like the way you are doing right now. Guys, inequality is the mechanism that will spread the benefit of new knowledge society across the entire world. Without it, there would be no incentive to spread it, and the world would lose the most exciting opportunity to increase its wealth and reduce its poverty. Since the emergence of the Industrial Revolution, I repeat that This does not mean that I defend the people who have become part of the 1% by state intervention and other bad practices. This is another subject entirely. But those tycoons that earned their wealth with the sweat they poured, like Ambanis, Mittals, Premjis, Andrew Carnegie, and nowadays the new age billionaires like Ritesh Agarwal, they all made their way to the top of the ladder with hard work. Anybody can use that ladder, but you can't break that ladder to make people equal, or should I say poor. There should be equality of opportunity, not equality of outcome.